Welcome to the After Dark podcast, the podcast in which Anthony leads his unknowing friend Konrad by the hand through TV shows. Will Konrad like them? Will Konrad hate them? Will Konrad predict what's going to happen, or will he be lost in the dark? Find out now, only on the After Dark podcast.
Hello and welcome to the After Dark podcast. I'm Anthony James, and that's Konrad.
Hello.
Well, Konrad, what type of skin would you like?
I'd like a kind of pastier skin to match that of my own.
You want to wear a skin clothes, some skin clothes, so it looks like you're naked, but you're not.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I want to be like Giant Gonzalez at WrestleMania 9, where I essentially wear a skin suit to hide my own shame.
Okay,
that's what I want out of this.
Right. Okay. So. If you saw the episode, you know exactly what we're talking about. We'll get to that in the breakdown.
If you didn't, I'm not a psychopath.
Yeah.
There is a reason we're talking about skin suits.
Yeah. So basically, I told Konrad last episode that this particular, like last episode, there was a lot of crazy stuff happening, let's be honest. The octopus being one of them. This one, I was like, well, wait till you see the next episode, because there's some really crazy stuff going on in the next episode, which basically from start to finish is just... I don't want to say action. It's not really action, but it's just like stuff in this episode again.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we'll get into it when we get into it. But I feel like I should say this now. My partner and I, we tend to watch these shows together. She checked out of the OA after I think it was about 3 episodes of season 1. She wasn't really into it.
She watched the whole of Dark though. That kept her.
Yeah, she watched the whole of Dark. Yeah, she's frequently talks about wanting to go back to Dark. But I've been kind of keeping her abreast of what is happening in the OA. And the last couple of episodes where I've been like, yep, there's a giant psychic octopus that showed up, and there's like a bunch of talking trees in this episode. And she's like, what has gone on in this show? Since like when she stopped watching, it was about Prairie talking with a group of friends, essentially going through group therapy about kidnapping, and now there are psychic octopuses and talking trees. So it's hard. This show is weird for. I feel like there's no way of prepping people for what's to come without just completely spoiling it.
Well, I said to you when you told me that your partner like checking out of it, and I said, she's got to have more faith. See the next show we watch, more faith in me, because I would I would not choose a show that doesn't go mental eventually. Let's be honest.
Yeah. No, it's starting to get a little heated in here.
And I will say, actually, just to break from tradition of the podcast, I think I want to do this. And Konrad, let me know. You can tell me no, and the listeners of the podcast can tell me no too. But I might do a little bit of it this episode. We're getting to the point now where we're in sort of the end game of this season. We've got 3 episodes to go after the one we're talking about now. It's very obvious to us both, and to everyone who's listening, that some things are not going to get answered.
Yeah, okay? I'm getting a sense of that.
So the point I want to make is, I maybe will start giving you some of my ideas about things that I think's going on, about things that I think it's pretty obvious aren't going to be answered. Like, let's be honest, the big questions are not going to be answered. This is a season 2 of what they wanted to be 5 seasons. So I'm going to maybe start. Not doing a full on. I'm not just tell you, oh no, you're wrong because this happens in 2 episodes time. But I'm gonna try. Like, if there's something comes up that I think is not a spoilery thing, and I think it's quite an obvious thing that won't be answered, I might start giving my opinion of what I think. And the reason why I say that is because I think it's very strange to go through a show that I love so much, go through it episode by episode, and then have something that I could have said because it's not a spoiler, and then like be at the end of it and think, well, I've literally got all of these ideas about the show in my head now, and we can't go through the show again.
Yeah, I think I guess we'll let the listeners have the deciding vote, but personally, I don't see a problem with that. I think we just have, like, it's the reality of what we're watching, that we always knew getting into this there was going to come a point where the theory kind of matrix point scoring would have to take a little bit of a backseat to just discussing what might come next, because there's so many theories. I mean, I'm of a mind that I think about 50% of the theories that I've created in the last 2 episodes probably won't probably won't be even remotely close to being concluded. So it'd be a shame to miss out on the discussion that could be had for the purposes of maintaining the facade that the theory matrix is important.
Yeah, and like you might listen to this episode and not notice me saying anything extra or out of turn. You might notice it and want to break your computer. But I will say that I'll sort of do a little bit of what I'm talking about in this episode, and if you think I was okay in this episode, let us know in the comments. If you think I should stop that, let us know in the comments, and then I'll make my decision accordingly. Anyway, that's a lot said. Make sure you subscribe to the Culture Cave on YouTube if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe on audio apps if that's how you like to listen to your podcasts. Give us a 5-star review there. It would mean a lot. And a like on YouTube. If you want to send Konrad a question, you can either put it underneath this video, or you can send us an email at adpodmail@gmail.com. If you want to support the podcast, you can either give us a tip, link in the description, or you could also buy a t-shirt. Livia has just bought a t-shirt, and she posted her t-shirt that arrived in the Discord group. Thank you, Livia.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I can't get over the quality of the t-shirt, to be honest with you. I am thinking about a new design, because we get free, to be honest with you, like a little peek behind the curtain, as Konrad likes to say, we get 5 free designs on Redbubble before we have to start paying to put up designs. So I've got an artist for a wife. I might start thinking of other designs, and then we could have like a little series of 5 stuff there. I've always thought of the jackpot Bartos. Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, that's great.
Right, okay, guys. Thanks very much, and we'll get into it now. The breakdown, Konrad.
Let's do it. I almost saluted again. Let's do it.
Oh, let's break it down!
So the episode opens with a bearded Homer walking up a road to a little cottage, all very normal. He's got a bundle of sticks on his back, and he knocks the door. An elderly woman opens the door and says, "We've got skins of many types, many shades," and he goes in and finds one.
Yeah, I'd like the first thing to say is I didn't interpret "I have skin" to be realised quite as literally as it was. I thought maybe, like animal skins, which in a sense I guess they are animal skins, but of the deadliest animal, that being man. So I didn't see this opening coming, really. Like Homer turning up looking like goddamn Tom Hanks in Castaway, in England by the looks of thing, or based on what is kind of revealed during the dialogue with this elderly woman, and then it gets very. I'm not going to say abstract because it's still all very rooted in reality, but the behaviour and what he's required to do becomes very odd. So like the kind of he's clearly trying to find Prairie's skin in this dream, and has to start sniffing and licking a woman's back. A
woman's back. I'm really interested to know like the way they filmed that. Like, are they actually? I don't like put it this way. I don't think they made like these fakes things. I think
they looked very real.
I think there's people in there, like, and they're just like they're wearing like a blue hat or something, to like get them out of there. But I think it actually it's almost like implying they're alive too, because if you notice when he goes up to Prairie, she's like, well, I assume it's Prairie's back. She's sweating.
Yes, yeah. I think. I mean, I don't take this scene literally. To me, this reads as a dream sequence for the San Francisco Homer, in which the original world Homer his consciousness is trying to force his way out by influencing what San Francisco Homer is dreaming about. In this case, kind of in a roundabout way, implying that Prairie is very important to his ability to, I don't know, carry on existing, I guess. And obviously this idea of a trade, I feel like is probably foreshadowing something. Homer will have to give up something in order to pursue Prairie. Maybe it's his career, maybe it's something else. But yeah, I interpreted this as a dream sequence that's kind of laden with metaphor, but nothing in it. It's hard with the OA because sometimes weird stuff happens. In fact, weird stuff happens in this episode where I'm like, oh, that is literally happening, even though it's really weird. Whereas this, I don't think this is literally happening. I think it's just a dream that's kind of loaded with symbolism.
Yeah, and that's how I read it too, to be honest with you, because he does wake up, like Homer wakes up in the next scene, so it's it's obviously a dream. I think that it implies that he did see what we saw in the dream, and I don't think it's ever like the show has never gone into someone traveling to another universe or going into an NDE like state while dreaming. This is just a dream, and it is, I think, as you say, Prairie coming to the surface of his mind with this other Homer within him.
Yeah, I think that's definitely my reading too.
Okay, so he wakes up. Was there any notes you had on the scene where he wakes up? I can't remember if there was anything in particular.
I didn't take any particular notes. I think we follow Homer throughout this episode as he's kind of just like wandering around the hospital, and kind of the time lapse is a bit odd because I get the sense that, and I think that's deliberate throughout this episode, because what Homer is doing throughout this episode must have taken him half an hour, but like what Kareem and the OA are doing must have feels like it took them a long time, and also what Hap and Elodie are doing feels like it took longer as well. So, but I didn't take any particular notes for when he wakes up here, so I don't think he does anything particularly important.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, about Kareem and Prairie actually in the house. Well, we know that time seems not to pass the same way there. Based on another character we meet down the road. Okay, so the coffin-shaped tunnel. Here it is.
Yes.
Someone said in the comments that there must be a Konrad as well, that they thought the coffin-shaped tunnel was going to be like the hole next to where Michelle was sleeping. It didn't turn out to be, although that place does come back later on in this episode.
Yes.
And so this is the coffin-shaped thing. It's interesting because it's kind of like it was kind of coffin-shaped vertically, and then it was kind of like Willy Wonka. I thought it's like slowly got smaller as you go up. It's like
it's like when in The Simpsons they rebuild Ned Flanders' house after it's destroyed, and they fuck up the main corridor, and it just starts shrinking and shrinking, and then they get to the end of it, and there's just a door with Barney's eye in it. He's like, "Come on in, it's your master bedroom." I think it's Barney. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but yeah, it's a great. There's a lot of. I've said this a number of times about this particular season of the OA, and I think it bears repeating again. They have really found Britt Marling and I can't remember the name of
Zal,
the other person. Yeah, that's right. Zal. So they have really found a way to kind of crank up the tension in a lot of the scenes, particularly involving this house, but just in general, to be honest, in a way that I don't think they really managed or perhaps weren't interested in doing in the first season. And we see that again here. So I found myself being like very concerned for these two characters' safety, particularly Kareem as it goes on. And also, tense, like on the edge of my seat. And it starts with this claustrophobic journey through this tunnel shaped like a coffin, and then they come up against the grate next to the well, and Kareem kind of looks beyond the grate, and you see like the tunnel continuing. And I love the way that it's kind of like this red tunnel, and to me that I interpreted that as it feels very like arterial, like they are moving through the anatomy of some enormous creature that they don't understand, and I guess maybe in some senses they are like that sort of sense of mystery of what this method of traversal actually is kind of up in the air by the end of this. But it's and where does the water come from as well? That's another thing.
Yeah, like I kind of also view it like the arterial and like moving through the passages of someone's blood and so that sounds really cool to me. It's actually very similar to what I pictured it as well. Like they talk about when you get to the rose window, like they talk about the idea of I don't know, being exposed to something, or some people can handle it, some people, and no one has been able to really handle it yet. That's sort of what they talk about later on in Pierre Ruskin's tapes. So my idea is, I'm sort of viewing, this is maybe too sort of wide of a concept, but I'm sort of viewing them as like sperm going into the, because the shot whenever they go into the tunnel for the first, it really does, it looks like they're trying to pull the idea of female genitalia to me. And look, when they go in, it's like they're like little sperm going through the tubes, and then like the idea is like they're trying to get to the enlightenment, they're trying to get to the egg
Yeah, like I think there's definitely something to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically the same thing as you say. Like I got the exact same feeling of like moving through passages of someone's body. Yeah, that's
I think it's just I think it just because it's whichever kind of metaphor you draw on, I think it just speaks to me of like there is a natural element to this here. Like it feels like a nervous system or a circulatory system, or reproductive system or something with kind of natural curves, and I think that's very deliberate in the production design of the tunnel. The tunnel must have existed already. They must have just found the tunnel, but it's curved edges, very very natural looking, and as you say, this kind of progress towards something at the heart of it. It just laces the entire episode with more questions, basically, about how can something like this exist naturally. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we get an answer to that.
Yeah, well, also, but you saying that they found it, I don't know. It's very easy for them just to build this on a set. Like, it's they built the tunnel in dark, so they could build this as well.
Yeah,
movie magic, true. Konrad, they're fooling you.
Yeah, they have. They've got me. Like. Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. All right. So prairie, like the water starts rising.
Yep.
Classic. The water rises with the grade above, and Prairie's sort of reminded of her time as a child when she was Nina.
Yes.
Technically, she still is Nina, but yeah, she was drowning. Remember, and that's sort of the first NDE that she had. What did you think of that symbolism? Is there anything in particular you had there, or just her remembering? I said membering there. Just her membering.
Membering. That's a different thing. I'll say no more about that. I don't know, really. Like, it's clearly there deliberately. I guess maybe it's just supposed to kind of give a sense of vulnerability to Prairie, that she's being put back in mind of her earliest, most traumatic experience by this process of traversing the house. I don't know if I really drew any other conclusions from that. There may well be some deeper symbolism that I've missed there, though. Okay, awesome. I'm sort of smiling at myself there because that reminded me of like the sort of questions I asked you in Dark. Like whenever I ask on this podcast, whenever I ask you a question, even I know how innocent the question may be, it's always funny to me because in your mind you're probably thinking, "Hang on, did I miss an important detail?" Which, yeah, that's exactly.
Which would lead to a theory there. yeah.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the time, it's just me wanting to ask you like, why you think it's there. Although sometimes I will lead you down a road, as we know. So they get into a room eventually with the well in like the well in the middle, and there's a little window up at the top, and they're sort of wondering how to get out. And I said to Konrad before we started recording here, I've got a lot of images and a lot of like sort of parts of the episode to show you, but a lot of it is just solving puzzles, and a lot of it is just going to be us saying, so they did this, and then they got to the next part, and they did,
Yeah.
So they found
and me talking about atmosphere, basically, because that's what 90% of Kareem and OA's or Prairie's the arc is in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. So they actually do find the little staircase, climb up the side of the staircase and get through.
Yeah, so it's anytime a character is or not alone, but isolated in a dark room with a single light, and they're kind of whipping it around to try and find something. In my mind, I am always returned to the movie The Descent, where they're kind of doing the same thing. It's actually with night vision goggles, but it's a similar kind of thing, and they whip around and eventually see one of the monsters in The Descent, and it's like, fuck! And so, like, I guess The Descent has stayed with me in that respect, because I was watching this, I was like, fuck, what are they going to suddenly see when they whip this light around? And I was very, very tense for the entire time. As it turns out, it was a bit of a fake out, because they are just kind of whipping the light around and then eventually find their way, as you say, up this staircase. But again, the use of negative space in this episode, this like darkness all around them to build that tension, and also the way, particularly this scene in the basement or wherever it is, the way it's shot, and the way they use sound designs with like the hissing in the background, and the shots of them. It actually does carry on once they go up, but they're shot from a distance as if they're being watched by something, which just made it very spooky. I was very, very into it.
Yeah, and the sound design of the show is incredible. Like every few days, it seems, as someone posts something on the OA subreddit of like, "Did you hear this?" And they play a certain part of the sound from season 1 or season 2. And it's like a tiny little thing, and you could hear something in the sound design. It's like, what the hell? Like, they're actually putting
Yeah.
stuff in. So yeah, really, really great. So eventually they realize they go walk around the house for a while. They get up into like sort of the entranceway. They walk around the house for a while, not really realizing what to do. Eventually they realize that the floor is a puzzle. And they have to put the puzzle together. It looks kind of like a fingerprint, the puzzle.
So I thought it looked like the concentric circles of a tree to me.
It does, yep.
Which comes back later in the episode. But it does also, I think it like there are definitely similarities, both literally and I guess kind of more. I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but the between like what the rings of a tree indicate and what a fingerprint indicates. Yeah, it's kind of like if you wanted to get like to get into the symbolism of it, it's like the identity of those two creatures. If you wanted to explore the metaphor, but yeah, I loved it. I love the so we get like before this we get a couple of scenes. I don't know if you want to go back to them. Of like Homer, excuse me, Homer is investigating Hap stuff in because he finds Rachel's stuff is still in her room. Does a bit of his investigation.
I think this happens just after they discover the puzzle, but before they solve the puzzle.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. So I'd say, well, so the discovery of the puzzle. Then, if we'll go in chronological order. So that like. Yeah, I didn't at that point clock that it looks like that it looked like, you know, a tree.
It's just like scratches on the side or something. Like it didn't look too like much when they're by themselves.
Yeah, but I do love the sound design, and again we see some shots when they're on this kind of when they're in this foyer with the puzzle at their feet. You see like shots of, and again it's really deliberate. Like there are shots of them through a glass paned door.
Yes.
Like something, and the camera is moving, so it's like something's watching them here. And it just never comes to anything, which I don't mind, but it's just like when it got to the end of the episode, I was like, you fuckers, like there was nothing there. You're just doing that to make things tense. And they did a good job of it.
Yeah, I will also say that puzzle looks like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, they solve it so confidently. I was like, I did a puzzle not. It was quite a long time ago. The lockdown has warped my sense of time. But like I did a puzzle probably about 8 months ago, and it was only like I don't know, probably like a couple of thousand pieces or something. And it was you know a photograph that had been turned into a puzzle. It took us 2 days to do the puzzle. Like this, I don't like. They're just like, oh yeah, of course. Like we'll just slot this here and slot this here. They don't even start with the edges.
Yeah, it's so stupid. I know. Well, the edges. Some of the edges were already done for them. Like, I mean, it was partially done. That's what I want to know. Like the characters who've went through this before. Like, does the puzzle just like does the house shake and throw the puzzle everywhere again? Like, if it's already
it's like an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. So Homer discovers the Rachel box. So yeah. I can't tell me what you think of this. Like, he first discovers it, and then he actually goes and wants to go to Hap's office because he basically is gonna go and phone the he says it by the left by tablet
the
there.
Hospital.
Yeah, he wants to phone the hospital to find out where Rachel is.
Yeah.
So what do you think of this plan?
So I think broadly it's just telling us that Homer is asking questions that he wouldn't have previously asked.
Yeah.
You know, just this continued development of his character into someone who is skeptical of Hap. And Rachel is just kind of Rachel's disappearance or moving away, I guess, as he sees it, has facilitated that. I think when he actually he has a nice conversation with the nurse lady.
Yeah.
It's just like I can't remember what she actually said. She said she forgot to do something. I can't remember what it was. I think it was tidy Rachel's clothes away or something.
Yeah. Rachel's box of stuff that was actually on her bed still. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's nice to see the lady from the Florida Project getting lots of lines, or a fair few lines in this.
Yeah.
And then he goes up to Hap's office and fucking just blows the whole thing wide open with the old classic bumper secret button on a desk and and reveal Hap's gun and secret stuff compartment. I would really put that in a locked safe, to be honest. I wouldn't put that in like a secret compartment in your desk.
Quantum physics books as well.
Yes,
and he actually finds some tapes of Pierre Ruskin.
I think they're mini discs, which is outrageous to me that he's got mini discs. It's like go to MP3 or stay with CDs. No one cares about mini discs, Hap. You are so out of touch. It's unreal.
Tell that to the GameCube. But yeah. So he's got mini discs. So he starts listening to the Pierre Ruskin stuff. We did skip over Elodie and Hap there, sort of getting it on. But I think we'll just sort of come back to that later because I'm sure we can just talk about that all in one go.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I loved. That entire, well, I guess it's one scene. It's just split up in this. So I guess maybe we'll come back to that after we talk about them rumbling Homer rumbling the desk stuff, because I've got stuff to say about Homer, Hap and Elodie.
Okay, cool. So Homer listens to the tapes, and it's Pierre Ruskin talking, and basically Pierre Ruskin tells the story of the house that we've kind of already heard before again. But he tells the story of the house, and like they made it into a puzzle to make sure that only to protect the ground that it was built on, or like the So basically, only the worthy can actually get to see what they see, and the unworthy will just be trapped forever.
Yeah. So so obviously at a very base level, that introduces a threat for Kareem and Prairie's characters because we now know the house could trap them forever. But it's some really kind of abstract and highfalutin words used here. The idea of worthiness is hard to pass, and I really enjoyed it. But it's kind of dealing with a kind of a morality or like an ethics code that we haven't really seen the show kind of talk about before. Yeah. So it kind of begs the question, what constitutes worthiness and unworthiness in this case? Is it what we would perceive as like a human a commitment to maintaining human ethics, or is it something more? Is it the sort of mental aptitude to as you've said before, to actually handle what the rose window will show you? But yeah, I loved that, and it reminded me a bit of the old dude at the end of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as well. Like the old the old like Cup of Christ guy who's just like I think it's what is it? It's like only the penitent man will pass at the beginning when the guys are getting their heads cut off and you have to kneel. I was expecting that to happen at some point, but
there
were no rotating. It could. We haven't seen the whole thing yet, but we haven't seen by the end of this episode. We haven't seen Kareem dodging any like rotating saw blades. But who knows?
Yeah, running away from a big boulder as well. Looking forward to that scene.
Yeah.
Okay, so they solved the puzzle. They've done well there. And upon reflection, looking at it again here, I think you're right. It is a tree, but it obviously it looks a bit like a fingerprint too. But I think it is a tree. So they do that, and they get to go through to the next room. Now, interestingly, it goes and shows a shot of the outside of the house, and the rose window is actually lit up red.
Yeah, like the goddamn Amityville horror. It's like any external shots of a house with a single window glowing red means that house has a poltergeist. Well, we'll see what happens. This house definitely seems haunted in like the kind of traditional sense, but who knows what's going on?
And actually,
frankly.
as if the house had a brain or something, it actually separates. It separates Kareem and Prairie, and they have to go down different paths. And Kareem goes into a room where all of the windows are bricked shut.
Yeah, and there's like the distant laughter of a woman, which is never a good sign when you're alone in a spooky house. I will say as well, the house may have kind of nudged them in that direction, but they don't do themselves any favours by clearly going up different sides of the two-sided staircase. Like, no, I've seen enough horror movies to know that you're not going to see each other when you get to the top of this staircase, guys. Yeah. But they panicked. They didn't keep a cool head, and unfortunately, they're separated as a result.
Yeah, exactly. Although, seems like it worked out pretty well for Prairie, it seems.
Prairie is fine. I'm worried about Kareem.
Yeah, I'm worried about Kareem at this point. All right, so Homer's still on the phone. He finds out, they've come back to him, that Rachel actually isn't in the hospital. So she's not there at all. obviously Homer's now starting to think, something's going on here.
There's also, I mean, I was actually surprised that they even had a record of her at the hospital, because to me that implies that the corruption here goes beyond Hap to others in the sort of medical profession who are prepared to propagate the lie. Because there's no way they'd have a record of Rachel and an empty bed without someone there maintaining
someone
that lie.
who put it in the system for him.
So it caught me a bit off guard, because Hap always seems to be a bit of an outsider, I suppose, apart from, I've forgotten the name of his friend who ends up killing in the first season now. Len, the guy he bashes, he drowns him in formaldehyde.
Oh, that guy. Oh yeah, that Bruce. I don't know.
Bruce, sure, we'll call him Bruce.
Yeah.
So with the exception of that guy, he seems to have been very kind of closed off about what he's doing. Doesn't seem to allow others in. Obviously, makes sense because it's very illegal. This just implied a kind of wider corruption to me than I was expecting.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would agree. Right, okay, so let's go to Hap and Elodie now. Because sort of the next thing that happens is Hap's getting a syringe ready for her. But they had a conversation in the bed before that. Off you go.
Right, so... I mean, this is... So, I complained 2 episodes ago. 2 episodes ago? 1 episode ago. Can't remember. But about the line where Hap is preparing to burn Rachel's body, and he says, this is Prairie's fault, out loud to no one. And I was a bit like, I don't believe that you'd say that in that situation. That feels like it's for the audience's benefit rather than for something that you'd actually say in the scene. Yeah, and it didn't feel like it was necessary. Now this is a good example of what of when they nail that kind of characterization of Hap, because the way he describes his relationship with Prairie to Elodie feels very true to the scene and the characters, and once again it shows how fundamentally dishonest and lacking in empathy he is. Like, he kind of talks about her like a partner who has been helping him, and he's such an interesting character, Hap, because he acknowledges that it's not love. So he's capable. He's not totally deluded. He's capable of understanding that there is a obvious emotional block and tension between him and Prairie, but yet he still talks about her as if she is a complicit assistant to his work, which she's the one doing all the fucking work here. So like the absolute nerve on him to suggest that she's helping him, right? Like it's just like get the fuck out of here, Hap. And then classic Hap. Wants what he can't have. When Elodie, as soon as Elodie implies that she might be heading off, he's like, "Wait 1 second, love. I've got to go get my drug kit.
Yeah, gotta go freshen up."
I feel like this is throughout this scene. I was like, okay, Elodie is playing Hap here. There's no way she's sticking around to get drugged. There's just absolutely no way. We'll see that as it goes on. But as soon as he was kind of threatening, or as soon as he was shown him preparing to do this, I started wondering where Hap's character was going to go from here. Because when the episode ends, I think he's not in a great spot. But Hap also has a habit of weaseling his way out of these kind of things. So I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so back to the house, and Prairie is like sort of inspecting some wallpaper. She finds that she can rip it, and it opens up, and she can go through that way. So another bit of solving. At the same time, Kareem actually realizes that he can lift up the bed and go through the stairs that way. More puzzle stuff. Anything to say about this puzzle stuff, or can we just move it on? Characters are cool. They solved it.
So, I mean, what I'll probably do is I will just go through my thoughts for this first bit, because I was almost like writing down a stream of consciousness as this was going on. So the first thing that struck me was, in fact, actually, this might be afterwards. Did you want to go back to the Elodie making the phone call before we talk about the rest of the Kareem and OA stuff?
Yes, actually, yes. Let's.
Okay,
Elodie
cool.
making the phone call. We'll do that first.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Cause, like that. Yeah. I just realized
that happens while Hap is in the bathroom. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, as soon as Elodie called the police before he drugs her, it's like, well, okay, so she knows what's about to happen here, which implies all sorts of things about her character and what she knows about Hap. In a way, I haven't knocked this off the theory matrix, but to me, this kind of confirmed my suspicion from the last episode that she is here to. She's here to. I don't know if I would say she's here to hinder Hap, but she's definitely not here to help him. And she definitely knows what's up with him as well. And I loved the dramatic irony of this scene, like with him getting ready to drug her when she's already phoned the police.
Yeah, exactly. Like either way, she's okay. Like because the drugs, the police, the ambulance is coming to help her with the drug overdose or whatever. But I will say, the way I read this, and maybe like I can't remember if this is how I read it the first time I watched it, but it's definitely how I feel now. When she says like she like, you know, there's a woman in a comatose state, you could view that as her seeing that, you know, what's going to happen next, and she's trying to get Hap in trouble. My mind went to, she's so advanced in the traveling that she's able to keep the person who's originally in that body alive when she leaves it, and then they send getting the ambulance to come and like sort of resuscitate the woman after she leaves her body. Yeah, almost in a way, obviously doesn't want to kill her, but also in a way that it sort of keeps that body open for her to come back to. Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I hadn't really thought along those lines, but that definitely feels consistent with what we know about her character, in that, you know, she's an experienced traveler, and obviously as an experienced traveler, you don't want to just leave a trail of destruction and dead bodies in your wake. Well, I think yeah, like it depends on what you've. I suppose the question of the brother is there. Like, is that someone traveling into them, or is that someone just getting hints? Like, so far we've seen people only traveling in, like when they actually have confirmation that they are traveling, only traveling into their own self in another dimension. So therefore, if Elodie was to just leave and then that one die, it sort of implies she wouldn't be able to come back to this dimension. You know? Yeah. I think that's a really astute observation, actually, that I hadn't thought about. So maybe that is just why she's doing it. You know, she's like, right, I'm off, and just wants to keep this vessel alive. Yeah. I think that will also open the shop to some really cool stuff moving forward too. Okay, so the puzzle. Kareem gets into a room with a little miniature of the house. Yes. Interesting. Yeah, so again, this is very like kind of spooky haunted house kind of territory here. So I'll go through my kind of broad stream of consciousness here, because there's a lot of stuff that happens to both of these characters while this is going on. So first off, it's going to be a technical note again, but I feel it bears mentioning. I love the sort of confusing way that this is shot. It shows that the kind of structure of the house that both Prairie and Cream are traversing their way through doesn't actually make any sense. Yeah. You know, they're going off in all different kinds of angles with like the directions they're moving from the screen. It's designed to be disorienting, I think, and I loved it. So we find out, obviously, like from the Pierre Ruskin voiceover, that ascending through the puzzle will allow you to see beyond the rose window, whatever that means. I had a thought here. So they've mentioned the engineer and the medium. Obviously, we see the portraits of them down in the foyer of the house. I wonder if they are as dead as we think they are. I kind of had a suspicion through this that I feel like we might meet them again. Not in, obviously, the engineer's body dies here. That Pierre Ruskin says that he went into a coma having traversed the rose window. Yeah, eventually died. But the implication was that he had left his body behind because he never returned to it. And he also never mentions the medium dying. Now, obviously, seems like it was. I don't know if they actually say a date, but it looks like from the paintings it was at least 100 years ago, probably a bit more than that. So, you know, early 1900s. I think they said 1911 or something like that. So I wonder whether they're going to turn up again. I'd love for them to turn up as kind of like people who've just been hanging out in the ether, so to speak, for hundreds of years. And then we get Prairie goes through the wallpaper and just heads out onto an enormous fucking tree. Yep. So she's in a tree. Yep.
So there's that visual link to the roots, and I did write pun intended after that, listeners, in my notes, of the house where the sort of magnetic floor puzzle sits, and we get just this forest of trees, like a connected nervous system, which to me kind of just compounds this idea of like the endless possibilities of the multiverse, just this endless interconnected web of things that you can travel to. And there, I don't know if you want to go into it here, or whether you, but there is the tree. When the trees start talking, there's a lot to discuss.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, so it's so hard to pass with this dialogue what is purely kind of like
it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Car. Is that the snake from the Jungle Book? Just
Scarlett Johansson.
Trust in me.
Yeah.
Like, it's it very much has that feel to it. I don't know. I trust trees. They seem like they're good folk.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I've seen the Two Towers. The trees are pretty good in that.
Tree beard. Yeah.
So it's hard to pass what of this is just like kind of flowery, again, pun intended, language, and what of it is actually kind of crucial to Prairie's plot development. So first, the wind is pulling you. This idea that the wind has always been kind of trying to pull her towards this conclusion, the fact that she is special and able to travel.
And the wind, they didn't actually show this point, like in the little flashes of all the winds pulling her, where I showed the little montage of all the spots. It didn't actually show at the. Remember at the very end of the first season, the wind is a big part of that final school shooting scene as well. Like the wind, something I noticed when I watched that. We didn't really talk about it, but the wind rustling in the trees is like it keeps coming back in that scene.
Okay, I didn't notice that. That is interesting, and I bet that's laced throughout the show. So I think to me, that feels like, I guess it's not metaphor, but this idea that the natural world is trying to pull Prairie towards the conclusion that she is currently heading towards, and has always been trying to pull her towards it. Beyond the wind, we get this indication that Hap, or presumably Hap, will make a powerful discovery. I think they say the one who is trying to destroy you will make a powerful discovery, but I mean, to me that seems like it's probably Hap. He seems like the most obvious, the obvious candidate for that role. So what does that mean? I mean, is it? I guess by the end of this episode, it's another way to travel. That's what it seems like the implication is here. That he finds a way to kind of mechanically and organize in an organized fashion travel as he wishes based on what happens between him and Elodie. And then the trees tell Prairie that he will use this to destroy your faith in yourself, so you will need him to survive. I don't have any idea what that means. I can't even begin to unpack that, to be honest. But it sounds bad. It sounds like It sounds like Hap's going to do something to Prairie. And then we get this idea of forming a tribe, which is something that we've had multiple times from Prairie herself, particularly in the first season. Less so in this one, I think. And that's an interesting idea to return to, because I feel like they've kind of they've left this idea that Prairie needs others with her in order to achieve her mission, whatever that is. And I think maybe this is trying to sort of remind us that she is, even though she's got Kareem with her now, she's incredibly isolated and incredibly vulnerable here. And then, following on from this idea that you need to form a tribe in order to protect the canopy of the forest, the trees inform her that they are already coming for you, which surely refers to the boys in BBA. That's got to be referring to the cavalry.
Could be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing they say here is Nina is the key, presumably because Nina herself is a medium, so she has that kind of link to the natural world.
And that makes me think that if Prairie was to travel to another universe, it'd be interesting to see, like, does she leave Nina behind, or does she take Nina with her? So will that power only be for this universe, you know? Yeah,
that was my read of it, is that she needs this Nina in order to speak to speak to the trees and the wind and like the natural world, because the other bodies she inhabits, like prairies, for instance, aren't mediums. So yeah, and that itself opens so many potential avenues for plots and character arcs, because if every single version of herself that she inhabits potentially has essentially what is a superpower that allows her to interact with the universe in a different way, there's just so much they could have done with that, which made me sad. But it was like, oh, I would have liked to have seen other versions of Prairie that maybe could do other things, because you can kind of see them sliding the gloves off and getting ready to go really nuts with this here. But yeah, that this and the way this entire scene is shot, the fact that she's kind of like cradled in these roots, but she's just like hovering over an abyss and they're kind of snaking their way around her. It's unsettling, but at the same time you feel that she's kind of safe. It's just, phenomenal scene.
Yeah, it's great. And I also like the pulsing bright lights moving between the trees, and it's just it's lovely. It's lovely. Okay, awesome. So we'll see later in the season if anything from here grows, no pun intended, or whether or not this is going to be something that will be forever a question in our minds.
I hope not. I hope there's something about about this.
Although I will say, obviously, we're going to talk about it more at the end of the season. But Zal Buttmunglish was asked recently, in like a Instagram question and answer thing, I think, do you see a time whenever the OA could actually continue? And he categorically said that he does. So,
oh, okay, nice. Well, I mean, Netflix have a reputation of having a little bit of a hair trigger when it comes to cancelling stuff, and then enough fans going, hey, fuck you, this is really good, stop cancelling stuff, and then them walking back their position. So I think the big example is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where they're like, this is actually, I don't know if that's a Netflix show, maybe it was another network that cancelled it, and Netflix picked up the rights to produce it. But hopefully the fans of this can make their voices heard, and they can decide to carry it on, because the clock is kind of ticking. And I think one of our listeners said in the comments last week that, or maybe it was you, I can't remember, but someone said, because I remember reading it and being like, oh, that's interesting, that like Netflix's business model is essentially predicated on this idea that you get more listeners or you get more subscribers by introducing new shows than you do by doing new seasons of existing shows, which is...
I've said that on the podcast before, but someone did say it in the comments last week as well.
Yeah. Which is, I'm sure that's true, but it's also just like, oh, that's so cynical.
Yeah.
Just never finish a story arc and just do new stuff all the time.
Well, that was basically the whole thing about the European Super League football thing, because they wanted... Like they don't like the legacy fans. They want new people coming to the stadium every week, because then they'll buy a new shirt. They get more money with new people, not the same people all the time. So
yeah, it's that's a good analogy. It reminds me of like 80s cartoons actually. Like I remember there was a Dungeons and Dragons cartoon where a bunch of kids got like transported into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and they just it was one of those cartoons that they just made until it wasn't popular and then ended it, and it just ended with them stuck in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I remember being like, what is that? This isn't, you can't do this to like an 8-year-old. This is not like, you have to resolve this narrative arc. How dare you?
That's crazy.
So we're back to that now.
Yeah, they could have at least made one more episode, like just get them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, Kareem taps the little window on the mini rose window. Water starts coming out. Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that as a symbol. The water coming out of the rose window. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's. I mean, it feels like a kind of. I guess it's like it's showing that there's like a flow of something out of the house into something else. But yeah, the metaphor here, if there is one, is kind of lost on me.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool.
It is cool. It is cool. Yeah.
He goes through a door, and then he goes out into a field, or like where there's a lot of like holes dug. Reminded me of Holes with Shia LaBeouf, and Madame Zarodi up the mountain. Anyway, so he's going through. All these people start grabbing him, and like as if these are like a lot lost souls to the house,
Yeah, so I think to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but they look like there are a lot of dead tree stumps.
Yeah, it sort of looks like
well.
like the place where trees were, or yeah.
So to me, these are like the lost souls of people who have either failed to traverse the rose window or have otherwise been kind of consumed by any like kind of the I don't even know what you call it. Just this like kind of abstract sense of energy that this house has. I mean, it's kind of confirmed by what we see with Zendaya's character in the following scene. Like this house has an ability to kind of sap the energy of the people who are attempting to traverse it. And yeah, to me, these are the ghosts. But again, like really, really creepy. And I was really fearful for Kareem here. I was like, okay, you've shown us with Prairie's character what looks like someone who is worthy and is successfully traversing the rose window. Kareem is experiencing something different, therefore he is unworthy, and therefore he's going to get trapped forever. So I was kind of watching all of this with like, oh shit, don't kill Kareem. Like he seems like a good guy, and yeah, very very unsettling. And yeah, then he ends up in a different room. Where
ends
weird
up in
stuff.
a mirror room. I've actually been
ends up in a David Lynch movie.
I've actually been in. I can't remember where it was. Disneyland, maybe. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I've been in like a little maze, or maybe the London Dungeons or something like that. Where like I've been in a maze of mirrors like this, and like it, and the idea is that you don't know which one's a mirror, which one's not. It's really cool. Yeah. So he finds Zendaya's character, and she is aged very old. He decides to get her out. He smashes the window. And then when he takes her out onto the street, it's raining, and maybe not so raining actually, but she gets splashed by a car going by.
Yeah.
And she then turns back to being young, and a seed grows out of her ear. Yeah.
So I think first off, props to whoever did the makeup on old Zendaya. I want to say that because sometimes when you make up a young person to look old, it can look ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that was the case with Zendaya at all here. I thought she looked really, really convincing as an old lady. It's also awesome, and I remember you asking me this question back in like the first episode of what I thought the room that he peeks into when they were looking for Michelle in the house might be.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that this room has kind of always been sat there, like he was within a hand of finding this room, and just didn't like hadn't done the sort of prerequisites checks to actually get to this part of the house.
Yeah.
I love that it's there. And you know, this is a fairly good indication of what the house does to you. You know, it's kind of draining Zendaya here. And then he saves her. But to me, like the seed coming out of her ear, to me implies that she will never be able to let this go. She has begun the process of being awakened with, you know, the seed seems to me to reflect an awakening in all the people who we've seen it in. Admittedly, that's only Rachel and Zendaya's character at the moment, but
and the pink-haired fella.
And the pink haired.
But I think he was dead by the time his seed came out.
Yeah, but to me that implies, you know, the kernel of knowledge and a pursuit of truth that will always draw people back to this. So in a way, I felt quite sad in this scene because although he has saved Zendaya this time, I don't think she will be able to let it go, and I think she's going to come back to this, and she will ultimately be consumed by the house, given that she was very close to already being consumed by it at the time that Kareem found her.
Interesting. So like she maybe won't even be like thankful that he saved her. Maybe she viewed like that she's still doing the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Even though it was clearly killing her, it like I think she'll be a bit like, I was fine. Yeah. Like I was doing fine. Like you were 90 years old. Like something.
Yeah. What would have happened actually? Would she eventually turn into a skeleton or something? And then like when you take her out, skin grows back and everything.
Yeah, it would have been like
she'd have to go to the skin vendor.
Yeah, she'd pop to the skin vendor.
Any shade.
It would be like, talking about The Last Crusade. It would be like the reverse of that scene where the guy drinks from the wrong cup in The Last Crusade, where like they turn from a skeleton into just a full person.
Yeah. Yeah, the opposite. Let's actually just take that stock footage and play it in reverse.
Yeah, just like for one scene, she turns into Julian Glover, and then she's back to being Zendaya again.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so last scene now. We get what you could possibly call the payoff of Hap continually using the term technology of movement.
Yeah, got some thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Also, I titled my notes for this Elodie Screws Hap, which I thought was quite funny.
Oh, lovely. Yes.
Based on what happens in this scene.
That is a true double entendre.
I was
okay.
very proud of that.
So she lays them out. I know she laid them out in a way that for the camera to see the five of them, but for me, I'm always like, yeah, but it's not in a circle around you. It doesn't need to be, obviously. But in my head, I'm like, it looks cool on camera, but I would like to see them in a circle. Or a pentagon, I suppose. But anyway, so she puts these little cubes out, and then they all pop up, and the music as well, like, it was real, like, it was like a song that they would end an episode of Smallville with. It was like, you know, like real, like, real, like, Americana. And these little machines start, like...
I fucking burst out laughing when the machine. I was like, "What are we? Is this fucking Wall-E? Like, what are we watching here? Like these adorable little robot cubes doing the move." And like, I thought, you know, so first she puts the cubes out, and then they do something which I love. Big fan of when cubes do this, go up onto their points.
Yeah.
That's classic. We're in sci-fi territory now. Stuff there, like just cube physics doesn't make sense why it's on its point.
Yeah,
but that happens. I was like, that's great, all aboard with that. And then they turn into what I described as like, you know, the little like campfires you get with like a gas canister underneath, and then the little kind of like holder where you put like a tin of beans or like a saucepan. They look like that when they kind of transform into something with little arms. I was like, the hell are these things? And then they started moving, and I could not stop laughing.
They're so adorable.
They are adorable. They are very, very adorable. I couldn't. If this is what traveling requires, I'm all for it. And they're going to turn up in the Wall-E dimension at some point, and everyone's going to be animated, and it's going to be fantastic.
So these little things, their own little fingers and all, and like the sounds as well. They make all the same sounds that they make when they're like, you know.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. So,
the little fingers doing that. It's so good.
So here's my question to you, which maybe is like in the heat of the moment and how funny they were funny in an endearing way. In all of this moment, right? Here's a question for you that maybe you didn't think of. If she's traveling from another dimension with just her consciousness, where the fuck did these come from?
Yeah, I did think about that. I feel like she must acquire them when she travels. Like, so there must be somewhere or some way for her to get these in dimension, because she's not bringing them with her. Yeah. And they're very... So the interesting thing about them as well is obviously like the physics of the cubes kind of standing up on their points is quite alien. But the actual mechanics of little robots doing the movements is quite... I don't want to say mundane, because obviously they're incredibly complicated. But the idea of it being like robots or mechanical is very different to what the show has done before. Yeah, and I think it's quite telling that Prairie, while Prairie is experiencing this very naturalistic exposure to whatever else is out there through trees and the wind and water, Elodie is exposing Hap to essentially the polar opposite in something that's cold and mechanical. And the fact that they are mechanical makes me think maybe it's something that Curie will eventually arrive at creating. You know, when you think of tech billionaires who study sleep and like are looking for patterns in people's dreams, it's not outside the realm of possibility that they at some point in the future have arrived at the production of these things. How she's got them in this world, though, I'm not sure.
My mind goes to that maybe there's like there's certain dimensions which have like a sort of a base for travelers. You know, there might be a whole world of travelers which we don't know. I will say as well, like, it's interesting, like you're saying, it's very mechanical, it's away from the nature. They do keep a little bit, like, I agree with you, and I think it's sort of, they've boiled it down to the simplest form of what it can be, because I think she talks about like the feeling after they've had sex, the feeling that this is the feeling, this is the will, this is what I have to use. So the feeling is still there. The idea of needing the feeling is still there, but it is completely in the person who's traveling. Whereas it's implied in the human form of the movements that the people doing the movements have to be done with perfect feeling. Yeah. That might just have been a misunderstanding on Prairie's part, or it could be that the perfect feeling gives you a bit of the will to the person who's going to travel. I'm not quite sure.
I think it could just be different interpretations of essentially the same end result. I think that's probably the way I read that. The other thing I find interesting about this is, like, when Hap explained that he travelled in the previous episode, Hap explained to Elodie that he travelled via the movements, and she kind of laughed at him as if he was like some country bumpkin who had just discovered how to drive or something. But, I mean, that is essentially how Elodie is travelling here as well. She just has little robot helpers to do it. Which is a bit like, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, looking down your nose at me? Like, just because you've got some robots.
It's just like someone driving by with a combine harvester. Like, someone's just, like, picking it by hand. That's how you do it? They're still doing the same job.
You're still effectively you're just doing the same thing. Like, but, so I was a little bit surprised by that. But, I think it's... I wonder if we'll see Elodie again after this. I'm very curious to see what's in store for her character, and for Hap as well. I think I had coming out of this scene. So I suspect that Hap, based on what has been told to Prairie as well, that Hap is going to essentially destroy her faith in herself. I don't think Hap is going to be caught by the police here, and I think he's instead going to use these newfound travelling machines to go somewhere else. I'm not sure where that is, but I don't think Hap's getting his comeuppance just yet.
Another question is, where are they? Because there's like a load of books piled up around the side. Like, is this Hap's place? Is this her place?
I think it's got to be her place. It doesn't look like Hap's place to me.
So, like, the amount of stuff that's in this room. Do you think that this is the Elodie that was already in the body's house, or do you think that this person has actually spent a bit of time in this dimension and possibly is going to come back to this dimension, having used the whole idea of like her other self being revived by the paramedics? What do you think?
I think I don't think she's been here that long, because I don't think she would have just waited to speak to Hap. I can't see any reason why she would delay in contacting Hap. So to me, she spoke to him as soon as she got here, which was, I guess, in the chronology of the last couple of episodes, maybe a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So I think this is the apartment of the person whose body she has inhabited, and she may well come back here. But I think that's my read of it, because I don't think she's had time to set up this little den.
Okay, awesome. Right. Do you want to get into the roundup then?
Yeah, let's do it.
IMDb rating 8.9.
So what was last week's? 9 point something.
9.0. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably say. Excuse me. I think we're splitting hairs a bit. I'd probably say it's a little bit lower than that. But I still think it's high 8s. It was a really good episode. There was a lot of great stuff in this. I don't think it had the kind of narrative high points in terms of internal arcs that the last episode did, with Kareem coming and rescuing Prairie and then them rushing off into the tunnel. But in terms of like what it explored, still really, really compelling and really, really interesting stuff.
Okay, awesome. What about any theories coming out of this one?
I'll mention them again briefly, because I don't know if I've really kind of explicitly said their theory. So I think we'll meet the engineer in the medium.
Okay.
Hap's going to discover another way to travel via Elodie. I think that's kind of already been confirmed, although that was one of those ones that I wrote down while the tree was telling Prairie this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the boys and BB-8 are going to reunite with Prairie this season, though I've got no idea how that's happening at the moment. And I don't think Hap's getting caught by the police, and instead gonna employ his new cube friends to.
Okay, so well, if there's no extra little theories going on, then do you want to just get straight into the questions then?
Yeah, let's do it.
A stranger from the outside.
A few questions for you this week, Konrad. First, we'll go to Ted Vic Disco, and he says, and by the way, guys, on this video, if you want to give questions or to adpodmail@gmail.com, send them there. Konrad, what do you think that the old woman meant when she said, "I have skin, all textures, all shades"?
I mean, I think she meant it very literally. Like she's
she
got a room full of bodies for people to lick on.
She must have the muscle too, because like all the muscles of the guy's chest and all, like just she doesn't have a perfectly, formed foam thing underneath. Like they must have the muscle in there too.
Yeah. But I mean, I think personally, I didn't. As we said at the beginning, I didn't interpret it that literally. I think it's Homer's pursuit of Prairie, or original Homer's pursuit of Prairie, surfacing in San Francisco, Homer's subconsciousness through a dream, kind of like what we saw with Prairie finding the Sleeping Beauty box with Nina in it in one of her dreams. The woman selling skin, I don't know, the fact there is a character there who is kind of actually selling it does seem important to me. That seems like a choice, because you really could have had that same scene with Homer just stumbling on the house and the skins, if it were just about his kind of pursuit of her. Or maybe you couldn't, I don't know, it would have been difficult, but I don't take it literally. I think this is just about him finding his Prairie somehow, and this woman is facilitating that and kind of planting the seed that there will be some kind of trade in Homer's future to achieve this.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think I agree with you. Okay, so number 2 from Ted says, "What do you think that Elodie knows about Hap's activities in the Origin world? Seems that she does. Seeing as she looked at him strangely when he went to the bathroom, as if she knew he was going to come out with a syringe and drug her."
Yeah, I think she does. I think she knows pretty much everything that Hap has done, and she seems to know what he's going to do as well. Although maybe not. Like we've had that discussion about how maybe she was just phoning the police because she knew she was traveling and was going to leave a body behind. But I don't get the impression at all. I think that's one of the reasons why I like this dynamic so much, because Hap views her as just as vulnerable as Prairie and the others that he's kidnapped, and she clearly isn't. She's clearly playing him, essentially. So yeah, that's why I hope she comes back, because if anyone can give Hap what for, it seems like it's probably Elodie.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. Okay, next up. When you saw those puzzle boxes on the floor and they opened up, what was your first reaction? Did chains and hooks and a certain guy with pins in his head come to mind?
So, Big Disco can be relied upon to tap into my love of incredibly gory horror movies there. Yeah, I guess they did. It did have a bit of a Hellraiser thing about it. I don't think I imagined her being like torn into chunks in front of us. That would have been a tonal shift for the OA. Just like, and now the Cenobites are here, and they're going to destroy Elodie and reform her out of glistening meat in the Traveller dimension. I think my first thought was those look like little campfires, and then it went to these things are adorable little Wall-E animations. But listen, if there's an infinite number of dimensions in the multiverse, then Hellraiser's in one of them. Yeah. So maybe we'll run into the Cenobites later.
Oh, that'll be great. Okay, Bill Ross says, for both of you, is it the pure intent of Will or just mindless mechanical movements that allows interdimensional travel? They kind of threw the whole 5 acting as one with perfect attention right out the window in this mushroom trip of a season.
I mean, they did to a certain extent. I think that like she talks openly about where the fuel to travel is coming from, like the afterglow of sex or whatever it is that she's using to fuel her her ability to travel, and the movements are obviously done mechanically by the little robo cube things. I still think Will, like the fact she's mentioned it twice makes it seem very explicit to me that fuel and this sense of will is still very important. It's just not the be all and end all that it was in the first season.
Yeah, I personally, in my mind, equate it to Star Wars and like the idea of the Force. And then as you sort of tear open that idea and start thinking about like what is it, how does it work, you get to the point where you add in the idea of midi-chlorians. And, obviously in Star Wars, most people didn't like that. And it was sort of a bit too, they didn't like the explanation of what the Force was.
Yeah.
I view that analogous to this. However, with the OA, I am going with it. Like, I like the fact that some people have like boiled down the components of movement to the point where it is very cold and very calculated, and it's not, as we were talking about before, like the naturalistic view that Perry takes to it. I like that there are these two different sort of competing sides, not necessarily competing sides, but it sort of is putting it across that way at the minute where we have these mechanical ones.
Yeah, they're like tonally quite distant, and I absolutely agree. Like, I think the more ways that they show you to travel, the broader the scope of the show becomes. And I think, I guess if I were going to offer a constructive criticism of how broad they have made it now, is that I could see this show beginning to kind of like creak under the weight of its own ambitions, because the more and more multi-dimension stuff they're introducing, the harder it's going to be to make all of it satisfying. And in a way, it's almost a good thing that there aren't any other seasons, because it's kind of like an unfinished story just of with this kind of scope allows us to allows our imaginations to go crazy about what else could be out there. So I think, we've got these two very distinct methods of traversing the multiverse, I guess, and it begs the question, what else is out there, which I really enjoy. I think it's really important to the show's sense of scale to have all these sort of competing views of how it's done.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, the idea of like the midi-chlorians I was talking about there, because the idea is that I can imagine, just in a very, very sort of not fully analogous way, but I can imagine like if they did in 10 years time, say, make season 3 and they got to make it, I could imagine a lot of people would maybe not like it because they've had 10 years to think about what it could be. And that's sort of, maybe not, maybe it's small enough that wouldn't happen, but a lot of time, like, people's expectations for things ruin their experience of when it comes out. That's
definitely true. Don't ever anticipate anything positively. that's my philosophy.
Exactly. Okay, last one from Eric. It's not really a question, but just a fun fact that Eric wanted to share with us. The tunnels they go through at the beginning of the episode 5 are accurate in shape and size for the time period. We are told it was built, but no lights, minus the lights that were hanging in there. He said, "I've worked in inverted egg-shaped sewers like that under San Francisco that were built around the turn of the 20th century."
Oh wow, that's really cool. So I guess I'd be fascinated to know what the reasoning is for the shaping of those then. But that's awesome that they clearly did the research on that to make the tunnel the right shape, and then kind of built it into the narrative of their second season.
Yeah, really cool. Right, guys, that's us for this week. We are going to mosey on down the road here. Thanks very much for coming, Konrad. Any final thoughts?
Just I feel like BB-8 has got to turn up at some point, and I'm just waiting for it to happen. So look out for anyone watching TV in the next episode, because BB-8 is 100% falling through that screen. Oh yeah, we're due to go back to the Crestwood 5, aren't we? We're due to go back to them at some point. Alright guys, thanks very much. If you want to subscribe to the channel, Culture Cave, on YouTube, if you want to subscribe on podcasting apps, hit the subscribe button there. Give us a 5-star review. We'd be very much appreciative. Thank you to the people who already have. If you want to buy a t-shirt, link in the description. If you want to donate to the podcast, link in the description. If you would like to join the Discord, link in the description. If you want to ask Konrad a question, comment underneath or send us an email at adpodmail@gmail.com. I think that's all we've got to say. So thank you. Apart from that,
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening. The After Dark podcast has been a Culture Cave production. Please subscribe on audio apps as well as on YouTube at The Culture Cave. Join us next week as Konrad journeys further into the unknown.